Hi, everyone, and welcome to Midnight Coffee Land podcast. Now the Story Tinker was 𝗙𝗃𝗱𝗄. We're up to episode 60, and we are here with Elisabeth and Teri.
Hello.
We're saying hello. Okay, so we open up with Poppy running through a smoky alleyway. The sun is setting, everything's yellow, and Tora is there. He's smoking a cigarette, and he's like, "What the F?" And what?
I was like, when I was like, what the fuck?
And then Poppy yells, "Hey," and she looks, she's pink-faced from running. She's sweating. It's adorable. There's these guys pursuing her in the background. Her skirt is billowing because she's running so hard. And, you see Tora, and the focus is, I think, in here on this panel on his crest, on his neck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's the setting sun behind him, and the lighting is just gorgeous. It's very atmospheric. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like something out of a new noir movie. Like he's the hard-bitten detective or whatever's out in the alley. I love the panel of her running, though. When I actually showed this to my husband, I'm like, look at just the quality of the artwork on this when she's yelling, "Hey," and that angle and the way she threw it, I think it's just gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, one thing I noticed a lot about these episodes are that they're very sepia toned. So lots of browns and yellows and just kind of dingy. And then there's Poppy with her little pop of color, that rosy kind of color that she has. And then Tora is also very gray, except for the red on his chest and his jacket. So that's cool for me. So we have pinks and reds and little pops, and it's interesting who those pops are. And sorry, I'm sniffling because I have allergies. I'm just like a faucet. It's like snowing pollen outside.
Oh.
Yeah,
oh yeah, it was snowing and it's pollen.
Yep. I noticed that the artwork in this has kind of changed also since season 1. I don't know how to describe it because I'm not an artist, but I noticed something is different. It's, I don't know, a little more line arty. I don't know what it is. It's more like round 3D-ish, just more rounded. Again, I can't articulate what I'm seeing, but I did notice something different.
Well, I did. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Oh, I was going to say, so I did. I kept saying, I'm going to do a season 1 reread. I'm going to do a season 1 reread. I didn't start rereading season 1 until Thursday night. So I read the entirety of season 1 in less than 24 hours, finished less than an hour before season 2 dropped. So it was really fun to see, like, her art style, like, being able to read it all at once and seeing how it did change. Like, Tora didn't change a ton. I mean, there were, like, minor tweaks to his face and his eyes and, like, his eyebrows, but, like, Poppy definitely changed a lot. And I really, like you said, she feels more three-dimensional now. And, like, I don't know, like, she was already pretty before, but now it's almost like she looks like she's like glowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's when she does the little callbacks, I can't remember which episode, I think it's later, like maybe it's 62, but when she does the callback to the train station and you see Poppy in that, yeah, you can really see the change in the illustration. But I love your comment about glowing because it's kind of like, it's like Jane Austen's Persuasion. Did you guys ever read that or watch that? Yeah, like the character Anne, she's in the beginning, she's like described as being just kind of not that attractive, just kind of faded, I guess. And then as her love awakens up, she starts to glow more and people notice it. And it's kind of, I don't think Poppy was ever faded. She was always adorable, but she was kind of in a bad headspace after Jewelry and walking in on that. And now she's kind of coming into herself, I think, with this and showing on her face.
Well, and even her clothing choices now, like when she meets with Mr. Lom, she's wearing like a white baggy sweater and like blue jean skirts. And now it's like, this episode's like this really cute pink top and then this like really fun floral skirt. Which again is like a really nice contrast to like all the other characters that are around her in this episode.
Yeah. Sorry, that was yeah, and she mentions how Erdine gave her a bunch of work clothes, but people can give you clothes That doesn't mean the way you put it together is going to make any sort of impact. So yeah, it's the way she's dressing and the color she's choosing and how she's matching everything in. It's just kind of like that beigey, squirtsy kind of stuff. It's like pastels and like primary colors, a lot of it, and just popping. And I love how the skirt's kind of like almost a bubble skirt, but not quite. So it's got that little like roundness to it. Yeah, it's super cute.
Yep. So this little ball of brightness is running down the alley, and Tora stands there quite impassive. And she, you know, we have these action lines and she yells, "Run!" And Tora grinds out the cigarette underneath his shoe and she grabs his arm as she's running past, intending to, you know, grab him with her. But Tora then just stays still. So Poppy is then halted, you know, she's like held back. It's really cute. It's a cute, like, you can visualization. And she puts her foot down and he says, "What are you running for? Stand your ground. I'm right here."
You know, the fact that she thought she could actually move him and that he would actually follow her is just hilarious to me. I'm like, did you think he was actually going to go run with you? But yeah, I love that where she's like, "What?" And she just is shocked that he's not moving and she can't move an inch. And yeah, I'm sure there's a metaphor in there. But yeah, like, why are you running? I'm right here. Stand your ground. You know, you don't have to flee from this. You know, like united force. I'm here, you're here, we can handle this.
And I think that panel has really stuck out to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like somebody messaged me, and I think she posted it on Patreon too, but Christina,
I wrote down her comments, so yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to read it, but like, I thought that was really good, of just like you know, just how Tora's not, you know, he's not stepping in to solve it for her. Like, he's just saying, like, you don't need to keep running. Like, I'm here as backup if you need it.
Yeah.
But like, I really like how he's pretty much all their interactions, he's always empowering her to take control. And where it's like, you know, having been in this really awful relationship for a long time, like, clearly she still doesn't trust herself, because that takes a while to, you know, process through. And that you know, he's supporting her without like taking over and like kind of like, yeah, I trust you, I trust your judgment. And probably he just wants to see what she's gonna do.
Well, too, I mean, the thought I had is they're both so used to standing alone. Like, even though she was in this relationship with Jewelry, she was basically alone. He wasn't in it with her, you know what I mean? So, like, he was alone his whole life for the most part. She is alone. And now they have each other, even though it's still very nebulous and, like, fragile. Beginning stages. Like, this, I think, is a big moment for them where he's like, stand your ground. I'm right here. Like, that's massive, I think, a turning point in the relationship.
Oh, and I found the comment from Christina. She compares Tora and Poppy here to Anna and Kristoff in the movie Frozen 2, which I thought was a really nice connection, where she said, you know, Anna runs into Kristoff and he says, "I'm here, what do you need?" Not, "Let me handle this." And Tora's doing the exact same thing here with Poppy. Like, he knows Poppy can stand up for herself. And she says, he trusts that she can hold her own. He's giving her credit for being strong, smart, and resourceful enough. He offers her help, but does not take over the situation. He's encouraging her to have faith in her own abilities. And like,
I've got your back.
Yeah, and I feel like that kind of calls back to the end of season 1, where Poppy, you know, when she's outside the club, she's talking about, oh, maybe I'm not the only person who's running away from myself. And how do you stop running?
Yeah.
Another thing that a lot of people pointed out that I thought was pretty clever was that this whole interaction is going to be, is maybe Tora kind of testing or ascertaining how Poppy can handle mafia stuff and how she can handle the more violent side of his life that she has not been involved in before. So it kind of can be like a litmus test for, can our relationship stand? Can we go any further?
Yeah, exactly. Like this is his life on the regular, and she thinks about this. Is this what he deals with? Is this like what he always has had to deal with? And yeah, and there's strength in that, and knowing that, you know, I mean, I've had instances in my life where I've actually surprised myself being in dangerous situations where I'm like, I don't know where the courage came from, but like the courage that you can also just is like a clarity and clear thinking. You're not freezing. And finding that courage to stand up for yourself and defend yourself is super empowering, especially as a female, you know what I mean? Because we get it from all sides all the time, you know what I mean? And the attitude of the guys chasing her is like, just give her to us. Like she's this disposable, worthless package, just hand it over, you know? And that's so weird. But you know, this is kind of what we deal with, and finding that kind of strength in yourself. You know, I grew up in the South, and I don't live there anymore, but you know, like the whole phrase of steel magnolias, you know what I mean? It's like you're perceived a certain way, but your inner core is steel. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing with Poppy, that steel core that she has.
I'd actually love to hear that story personally, because I always wonder, I've never really been in a dangerous situation, and I always wonder how I would react. Like, I know I was like, I wish I would be like courageous and intelligent and resourceful, but I'm like, I'm also nervous that I'll, like you said, freeze. But anyway, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the whole, yeah, no. I mean, I can like really quick. I was stalked when I was 14 and 15, and I was home alone when I was 15, and my stalker and two of his friends showed up in my house, broke into my house, and I was home alone. So it's kind of like they had knives, I had me. You know what I mean? It's just like, wow. What do you do? You know what I mean? So my dad had showed me, my dad was in the Army, and he showed me how to use one of his guns. So I just was like, okay, well, here are my options. You know, I can sit here and get attacked, or, so I got to back them out of the house using my dad's gun. And a lot of it, like, it's blank, because I remember they were saying things to me, but I don't remember. But that's just the thing. I'm like, what do I do? Here's my choices. Stick up for myself, or, you know what I mean? So that was the first instance where I was just like, I don't know where this is coming from, but I have it, and I'm glad I have it. So.
Wow.
That's crazy. I'm glad you're able to do that.
Yeah, me too.
So anyway,
yeah.
So Tora is about to teach Poppy some stuff too, or at least even in just the emotional way. And Poppy stops. She's, you know, puffing and huffing because she ran a lot. Tora is just standing there completely stoic, you know, regarding the guys with his probably that like intimidating glare that he has. And Poppy's still not looking up, and she's like, how many people are there behind me? And right now there are 4. And now we go back in time to
I did want to point out, like, color wise, you were commenting about like the panels being like sepia and yellow and kind of this more like glowy light, and it transitions to a much more like kind of that cold light that we've seen before when Tora's like going into like mafia mode. So like when he grabs her hand and she stopped there, it's very yellow there. The next panel, there's less yellow. And then when we're on his profile, all the yellow is gone.
It's kind of like when she went to his apartment before he like warmed up. It was that same color, right? Like his whole environment is that kind of cool gray, icy-ish color. It's almost like that weird greeny gray you get before a storm, like a really bad storm, when you get that color outside. Yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
Because then the next panel of Poppy's face, you know, it's that gray green in the background, and then the next panel of her when she's asking how many people, she's all green and kind of gray.
Yeah, because now she's in his environment, his space. Yeah.
Yep. So now we scroll back in time to the moment after Corbin spilled his soup over the, what are we going to call him? Mr. Rude, Mr.
I call him Lizard Boy. Like, he looks like a lizard to me. I expect like a fourth tongue to come out. Like, I remember thinking that when I first saw him with his mom, like, he's a little lizard jerk off. You know?
I've heard generic brand Joker or Dollar Store Jared Leto.
Okay. Yeah.
And somebody actually did a like what you think you ordered on Wish, what you actually got from Wish.
I have to say though, I think the suit looks really good. And if I feel like it was described as velvet, like I could just feel it. I'm like, yeah, I would think that suit looks nice.
I have a nice navy velvet blazer I adore. But yeah.
Velvet pants, I don't know. That's a little overkill.
That's a look. That's definitely a look.
If it was on Quincy, we would like it, okay?
Well, Quincy's got the panache in the body and, you know, the flair. This guy just looks like a dressed up lizard.
I like that, dressed up lizard.
Dollar store Joker lizard. I love it.
His fork tongue.
So he's got his foot on Ben's hand. Poppy and Ben look frozen, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in addition to Dollar Store Lizard. And Ben's like, I'm sorry, man, it was an accident. And Poppy has this extremely determined look on her face while she's anxious. You could already see the wheels turning in her head.
Wow.
And she starts reaching, we see her hands on her bag, and she looks down surreptitiously, and she starts reaching into her bag, searching for something. But one of the other guys actually notices her and grabs her arm and says, calling for help. And Poppy's like, gosh, she tries to pull her arm away. And meanwhile, the store owner is watching them, and he's like, oi. And, we kind of hear the exclamation marks, the shouting. And he's like, it's getting out of hand. We're really going to just stand and watch him terrorize those kids. And the other guy, who we don't see yet, says, then what? Call the cops and get ourselves arrested for selling street food illegally? Which is, by the way, I'm sorry, a very horrible deterrent. We're like, they're not going to call the cops because you might get arrested. It's like, I think there should be like a extenuating circumstances kind of thing where like, the cops shouldn't arrest them if that's happening. No.
If we go back up to Poppy's face where she's looking determined and you tell she's thinking, her expression reminded me of when they were in the restaurant when it was Cordy and Quincy and Tora and he was being really rude to that waitress. She has that same kind of look on her face, like I'm really angry and I'm really thinking at the same time like about this situation. And she's like cataloging what's in her purse, and she has a taser, but will a taser work against all these guys? Absolutely not. So now she's got to think of something else, right? So yeah, and then you got the street vendors like, oh, we're just gonna stay out of it, we don't want to get in trouble and blah blah blah. The usual like, we're not getting involved in this, we'll just let it play out and see what happens.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing, honestly. So to finish that part, they say we can pack up and leave. The guy tries to think of a solution. He's like, we can pack up and leave before they get here. And then the other older man says, yeah, those street rats are going to come for us next. These stalls are all we have, old man. Stay down. These kids can take care of themselves, and if they can't, they'll have to learn. And it's just like, it's really brutal, jungle mentality, every man for themselves or every animal for themselves. It's it's just
it's so cynical. Like, yeah, I mean, maybe they have to get beaten up or whatever, attacked to learn how to take care of themselves. We'll just let that happen because they have to learn eventually. It's cynical.
And it sounds like they're on near the edge of Aries Street, so it's probably like they get a lot of like spillover people from that area. And was it the last episode when the vendors were talking about Joe and Tora, or is that the next episode?
I can't remember. I think it's
but like they're talking about how this area obviously isn't safe. I mean, it's not Aries Street, but it's still not a safe area. And they're like,
Aries adjacent.
Yeah, and just like nobody really cares about us small fries except for old Ellis's boy.
Joe.
That's too, yeah. So the guy has Poppy's hands in his grasp, and he pulls in real close, and he does this intimidating whisper or whatever. He says, takes 20 minutes for the cops to get here, only a second to do serious damage to your little boyfriend. Meanwhile, this other guy is like grabbing Benjamin's shoulders and obviously applying pressure, and he's like, ow, ow, ow. Oh, poor little boy.
Yeah, and you can't see their eyes. Like the one guy has his hat pulled so low you don't see his eyes, and then the guys that are holding Ben down, you also don't see their eyes. They're just like these. I think that takes humanity away. Like they're just these thugs, right? I mean, they're not the thuglets because those guys, that's our affectionate nickname for the thuglets. These are not thuglets. These are just jackasses. Yeah.
And Poppy, you know, is stammering and sweating. She's like, no, I was just getting out wet wipes. Look, no cops, I promise. And she indeed does have wet wipes in her hand. And the guy grabs it out of her hand. He says, give me that. You better not be playing games with us. And he goes, I'm not. And then at this point, Mr. Dollar Store Lizard turns back. He looks so creepy, by the way, with his like, his bones are all jutting out of his face. I mean, he does look like he uses drugs fairly frequently.
No lips, you know, and he's just like, where's your fork tongue, dude?
Yes.
Yeah, no, he's creepy. He's like a corpse, almost corpse-like. Yeah.
Well, and I like how his like all of his clothes and like his skin and his hair are all like so tonally dissonant. Like most of the thugs that we see usually are like dark colors, or like, you know, they tend to look fairly coordinated, like with their tones, but like he feels like visually dissonant. Like his skin is like yellowy green, and then you've got like the maroon red, which does not like go at all. So he just feels like uncomfortable to look at.
And that's totally on purpose. Like Lily knows how to dress him very stylish. He's got the black shirt with the brown shoes. No. And then, sorry, fashion faux pas. Yeah, and everything just flashes. And he's just, it's like he's trying so hard to be this slick, you know, dude. And it's like he's got the expensive stuff on, but he's clueless. It's like he's acting.
Yeah, it's kind of sad in a way. You know, he's trying to be better, but he's only trying to be better on the outside, not on the inside. You know, so it doesn't.
Well, and I do love how Lily does that, where it's like just color-wise, she doesn't even have to tell us. I mean, we've seen him before, but like just the color choices that she uses for him tell us like how he doesn't, you know, he feels like he's more important than he is just because he has money.
Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing him early when when he was, you know, in his mom's restaurant. And I was like, God, this guy looks like a ghoul, right? And then I'm pretty sure this is the dude that was chasing Goliath at the end, like, because you saw the hair. And I'm like, there's that guy again.
Oh, I didn't even make that connection. I thought that person had like different color hair.
I think it was just like he could have dyed it this green because it wasn't green when we met him earlier. So I think this is again him trying to be cool and hip and look at my, you know, cool hair. But yeah, I'm pretty sure like he's this weird little thread that we see, like we meet him and he's a dickhead and to his mother, and then he gets that CD or DVD disc and the picture of the Erie Street Kings, and then I think he's the guy, one of the guys chasing Goliath at the very end, and then here he is again. So he's this weird thread coming through.
And like okay, that's what I'm gonna say a little later. But anyway, he goes to Poppy and he's like, or maybe I should get her to do it instead. And it's this very lecherous expression where, you know, he's like, pretty girl, let me get her to like clean it off my shoes. It's very gross. You know?
Yeah.
Ugh. You know, he just wants to put her down like that.
Well, it's like the way he was thinking about Candy when we first met him, like Candy Baby, and you know exactly what else he was saying about her. But yeah, it's just really gross. So obviously he's misogynistic and objectifies women. And hey, you're a woman, you can clean my shoes.
It's like everything I hate. Bad to his mom and a misogynist. It's like,
yeah.
Well, and I do like with the next two panels with the color in the background where like him behind him, it's all dark. The other two guys are faceless. We switch back to Poppy and it's that like the background's kind of dark, but then it's like she gets the moment of inspiration and like the light coming on behind her where it's like she thought of something.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have like a shine in her hair, you know what I mean? It's like she just she's like, ding.
Yep. So she said,
I know.
Oh my gosh. It might be a better idea to get it nicely cleaned by a professional, to be honest. And those velvet pants look really expensive. And I'm not sure if you should wait too long to remove those stains. So she, by the way, is very clever because she's appealing to his vanity, and she's flattering him. You're really expensive. You deserve a professional. You don't deserve me. I'm not good enough.
And she's also using his misogyny against him too. Like, oh, I know where to get these clean. I have an idea. You know, she's totally playing all of that up because he's an idiot and he's misogynist. So she's like, okay, I'll play the dumb chick, and you know, I can help you. I know where to get them clean. You know, that kind of.
Very, very
Did you
true.
notice his blazer and his pants don't actually match? They're not the same red.
You have to stop.
Like,
It's
like
guy.
a tomato red and like a blue toned red. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's like warm and cold.
They're like two completely different kinds of red. Like, I'm an artist, I notice color, and so I'm just like, oh, dude.
Bad.
But yeah, I love how she's just like, you know, because she keeps saying expensive and like, you know, those expensive fibers are damaged. It'll be ruined forever, which would be a pity with such a gorgeous pair of pants.
And you know, she probably her voice is a little higher and like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we would all be like, oh, you know, yeah.
But I love how she just lays it on so thick.
Oh,
and
so
like, we've
thick.
seen in the past where she's like, oh, Pops, you're laying it on too thick. But in this case, she is just laying it on, and they are just eating it up because they're idiots.
Yeah, it's a bunch of morons. It's like a group of morons that she's surrounded by, except for Ben.
And, you know, she says it's a little exclusive, which is obviously even more appealing now, and by appointment only, but I'm sure they'll make an exception for a gentleman like yourself.
Yeah, and she's like, ugh.
And then she just lies, and she's like, I'm a junior PA and I help to make the appointments for the top CEO of my company. This is just non-stop flattery.
And her eyes are all wide, like, oh, I'm so innocent. You can trust me. I'm not deceitful at all.
Well, and then you notice in the next panel then with them, when we're back on the dollar store Joker, like the background now is yellow again. So it's like she's de-escalated the situation.
Yeah, it's like she's casting a spell.
Yeah. Yep. So
and like even his face has changed, where before it was like kind of really like snarled up. Now he's sort of like, oh no, my pants.
And his thuglets are like, or whatever we want to call them, boss, she's got a point. Isn't this a limited edition piece? Yeah, it is. And he was put on the waiting list for effing weeks. He was. Damn, that sucks. Still like sympathizing with him. But we learned from here, first of all, he's vain as heck and will spend tons of money on clothing. He now has money. And Teri, you mentioned before, you know, he found the DVD. So he probably sold it off to someone to get money. So
yeah.
So
yeah, because didn't they I think when Tora was talking to you when he was working out, he said something like the cops bought it under the table for a bunch of money. And he was like, whoever sold that must be feeling really rich right now.
Bang, 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 bang. Here he is, lizard boy. He really needs to learn how to do his eyeliner. If he's gonna wear it, just
he needs to take some tips from Brian.
Oh God.
That's it. Clean that edge up, dude.
Yep. And now, you know, he's getting all angry at the thought of his pants being ruined, and he says, how do I get there? And Poppy's like, I don't have the address with me, but you can look it up online. It's called 𝗪𝗡𝗪. So now I was going to look it up, but before I had a chance to look it up, Emily so kindly pointed out for us that this is when you line to say, as a rejoinder to someone, after the event.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and she
I
also,
can feel it too. I'm like,
so they of course don't recognize it because they're really dumb. And Emily also, sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, and I was going to say, it's a callback to episode 1, where Poppy's on the scooter and she's saying, you know, I usually think of things hours or days or weeks later. Like I'm, you know, I stay away from conflict because I never know what to say. But I'm like, dude, you just figured out what to say real fast here.
Yeah.
So it shows growth for her, right? Yeah, that she's even calling back to like her former self or Like if Poppy in episode 1 in this situation was in this situation, she would just sat there frozen. Like I don't think she would have been able to figure out how to get out of this really, and it would have been very bad. But now she's grown and gained confidence and all of that. So now she's much quicker on her feet and thinking how to get out of this.
Well, in her first experience face to face with a thug at the police station, like she was completely frozen. Like,
yeah,
he's talking to her and she's like, you know, do something, say something. And all she could get out was like, you know, please move kind of thing. They're real scared.
Yeah.
And here it's like, she's got her head up. She's coming up with something, you know, she's playing into their vanity, reading the situation. Like she's actually figuring out a way to get out of this situation too.
I mean, if you look, her shoulders are back, like she's not all hunched and scared, like she's very straight, her shoulders are back, she's projecting confidence. Yeah, so exactly, that rapist that she ran into in the police station. Yeah, that was old Poppy, this is new Poppy.
Aww.
And even how she's like approaching, like she is approaching this guy where he's like, you know, how do you spell that? And she steps forward towards him, and like you said, her body language is really open and like confident, and like Ben's the one sitting there kind of like, you know, curled in on himself and pulled back.
Do we know how old Ben is? Do we have a guess on how old Ben is?
15?
14, 15-ish, right? Yeah.
I mean, he's working, so I would guess like 15, 16.
Okay, yeah, that's right, he's working.
Mean, I guess we don't know the ages necessarily in there and, you know, working at a grocery store.
I mean, I was just guessing because he looked young, somewhere around 15 or so. And it's, I think, I forget where they said it, but like, Candy's not that old.
Yeah. So Candy, to say,
Candy's age.
I mean, I would say Candy would be to have him late, if she had him really young, say like 15, you know what I mean? So she's probably, even if she had him younger, 14, we don't know her backstory. So it's like late 20s, early 30s is my guess on Candy. I'm sure she looks a lot younger than she is. Yeah.
Anyway, so she starts spelling it out for him, and he's like, wait, slow down and say that again, because obviously he is not too bright, and he's trying to type it in as Spanish. Like, sure, ready, that's, and then she can do le hyphen whatever, and she's, you know, keeps spelling it out while she's looking down, and he keeps typing it down. He's getting confused. He's like, wait, hyphen, didn't you say apostrophe, le apostrophe? And he's like, damn it, he's so frustrated. Like, I kind of feel bad for him because he probably suffered in school because he probably has like a learning impediment, honestly.
Yeah.
Can see him, you know, that probably was a contributor to his current life choices. But anywho, he says, type it in for me. This place better be as good as you say it is. He's like, of course it is. Like, get it to me. I'm losing my patience. Of course, now let me see. And Ben's looking up at her meanwhile. And she's like, crap, it's taking really long to load. Meanwhile, the cockroach is slithering along the table. And he's like, not my problem. Hurry up and get to it. Okay, any moment now. Cockroach is closer to the edge of the table.
And she grabs the cockroach with her bare hand.
I grew up in Florida, and these suckers are called palmetto bugs. They're the big roaches that fly. Yeah, and I remember waking up when I was a kid and having one hanging out like right on my upper arm, looking at me. They're nasty. So I'm like, oh great, a palmetto bug is what I thought when I read this.
Well, I love that shot of Ben just going barf. Like that was one of the teaser images for season 2. Yes. And all the guesses that people had for what was happening, they're like, he's watching somebody get beat up, they're threatening him, you know, somebody just somebody did something to somebody else in front of him, it's probably super violent. And it's like, no, he just saw Poppy grab a bug with her bare hands, which I think helps show like he's still really young.
Yeah,
like he's young, and even though he's like obviously mixed up and stuff in Airy Street, like he's still young and like gets crazy over a bug. So even though he tends to be like kind of a snot and like he was calling her old, but like you can see it, like he's a lot younger than he actually like tries to act. normally.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Oh.
Just
Yeah, 𝗵𝗵𝗱 somehow has steals of guts, or guts of steel, sorry. And she's like, "You're done." And he's like, "Hurry the F up. If my pants are wrecked, you and your boyfriend are dead." And she's like, "Here's the website." She hands him his phone back. And my, there's the cockroach crawling on his phone. And it, its wings start to whir and it flies straight at his nose. Oh, gross and well deserved.
and I love that the bug has like the little pissed off like thing. So it's like, oh, somebody just grabbed me. Oh, it is hell to pay now. And somebody called him the cockroach of doom.
Oh gosh. So they fly into pandemonium. They're all running around, flinging the phone, screaming. He's like, "Shit." And Poppy yells, "Come on, let's go." And she just grabs Ben across the shoulder, the chest. So cute. I love his face. Adorable. And they're running. And she's like, "You're doing great, Ben. Just walk casually away from them." And the other fuglets are laughing like, "Damn, man, you're scared of a little bug." And he's like, "Shut the hell up."
And I love that Ben and Poppy both have the same expressions right now.
Just let's go.
And I think Poppy's like, "Walk casually." It's like, you are just full on sprinting right now. That's not walking casually.
Now the lizard guy notices and he's like, "Get those little shits." And now we have all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, the number kind of keeps changing. No, 8 people, sorry. And they're running after them. So they kind of round to the corner. They're knocking at a bookshop. They're like, "Hello, is anyone there? I'd like to buy some books, please." But no, they're closed. They can't get anyone's attention without yelling. And she's like, "Did we manage to lose them? Can we make it to the nearest train station from here?" And Ben says, "No, it's way too far. We'll never get there in time." And indeed, they are rounding the corner and coming close. He's like, "They're catching up." And he says, "Follow me." And he goes into this little alleyway and they can't find him. We're like, "Saw those little rats?" "No, but they won't get far. We've blocked off their access to the rest of town." Okay. So they're kind of stuck. And meanwhile, they're in the alley. Ben says, "I think we're safer now. Thank God for that pedestrian subway, but where should we go from here?" And he says, "Wherever it is, we can't go beyond this point. Area Street is right behind this building." And she's like, "Darn it." And she's like, "Anyway, he says, "Anyway, you're going to call the cops or something." And she's like, "I guess I should, but I'm not sure if I want to get the cops involved." And that is, when Poppy was lying on her bed, like after her first date, she thought of this, and this is exactly what's happening. She thought like, am I not going to want to like call the cops on him or stuff like that? And here we have it, like the situation is playing out. She doesn't want to get the cops involved.
Once you're backing up, it shows you how well Ben knows this whole area, where he's got this mental map of where they can go, where they can hide, how far away the train station is. Area Street's right behind this building. Here's this little alleyway that's kind of we can duck into. So it just makes me wonder, like, what has Candy and Ben, like, what have they been through? You know what I mean? But yeah, so now she's like, "I don't want to get the cops involved." And it's interesting because right now she's just dealing with the Lizard King and his little minions. Tora's not involved in this yet, but that's like, now this is her first, So yeah, we have a gap, obviously, between the season finale and this moment. So there's stuff that's happened that will be revealed to us that we don't know yet, because she has knowledge and things like that. And then the change in her thinking here too. Yeah, because my first instinct would be like, 911, hi, I'm being chased.
And she said, I think it was in the previous episode, she was talking to Ben and she was saying, "Oh, where's Area Street compared to where we are right now?" And he was like, "Oh, it's nearby." And she goes, "Yeah, I need to stay away from there."
Which so there's probably some directive from Tora, like, don't go there.
Well, and even like, I think now she understands how dangerous it is, whereas before it was just kind of this theoretical place that her landlady told her about and was like, "Oh, well, it's not, our city's not that dangerous. Just don't go over that way, but it's fine."
Exactly.
But now it's like, she's been there. She's seen with her own eyes how much of like this kind of dark, unwelcoming place it is, like that the cabbie driver was like, "Look, I can't go back past this point. Like the cops don't come here." And seeing like Ben get hurt because of her, like I think it really, now she understands like, oh, it is a dangerous place. Like people aren't just telling me to stay away because they don't trust me. Like this is a genuinely dangerous place. And somebody, I forget, it might have been Christina and I when we were chatting, but she was saying that, and I think this too, like at their birthday party, like I think the Thuglets probably ran their mouths more, because there's some like several hours later that they were like drinking together for hours. I'm sure they told her way more than just that they thought Tora is gay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Like they probably, because they were like, no blabbing. And then at that point they're drunk, and like, I'm sure they told her more about like Aries Street.
Well, sure, because they're probably trying to impress her. And, you know, show her some stories, how cool we are, and stuff we've seen and stuff that goes down. Yeah.
One, I grew up in the inner city, and like when that's just your normal, you don't realize sometimes like it's just normal. Like everybody you know talks about like the gang war that's happening, or like you know, the drug dealers down the street or the meth houses. Like, yeah, it sucks, but it's like it's just kind of part of the fabric of your lives. And so I'm sure they said a lot of things where they're like, oh yeah, we're being so good about not blabbing, and Bobby's just probably sitting there like, huh, okay.
Wow.
Because I'll even say things sometimes and people kind of just blink at me, and then I'm like, oh right, most people don't have to deal with that. Okay, whoops.
Yeah,
true. So anywho, so Ben also has his own reasons for not wanting to call the cops, and he says, yeah, me neither. All I'll do is dig up dumb shit I did in the past and tell and then he stops talking because he's thinking of his mother, and then he's like, I think I can know someone who can help us. So he's probably thinking of Candy. He's like, stay here, I'll be right back. And somehow he goes out of the street, like I guess they don't see him, but whatever. She's like, be careful. And she's still there in the alleyway. And then she thinks to herself, she's like, calling the police should be the most obvious thing to do for most people. But for me, and then she's like sweating, it feels like it's not that simple anymore. And that's the end of that.
That's the end of that. I mean, with Ben taking off and they're not chasing him, he probably timed it. They went around the corner or something, and he's like, here's my chance, I'm gone, bye. But yeah, and then you see her face and she's thinking about it and she's sweating. So again, here we are, Crossroads, you know, her life's going in a new direction.
And I think it's also an interesting change for Ben too, because at the end towards the end of the first season, we see him and Candy kind of arguing, where he's like, you know, they're just taking advantage of you. Like they don't actually care about you as a person. Like, you know, you're being taken advantage of essentially. But now he's sort of like, oh, my mom actually might be able to help in this situation.
Yeah, that's great. Maturing also.
Yeah, you know, it's like maybe my mom has some power here, acknowledging that power that she may have. And again, we don't know what they went through that drove them, you know, to try to pawn Poppy's brooch. We don't know what happened there. But yeah. And I love that we can see more of his eyes too. Like we never used to see his eyes, really.
Yeah, I know. I was like, Ben has eyes.
His eyes
brown.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's interesting when she chooses to show his eyes versus when his hair is still, his bangs are still in his face, like a little emo boy.
Yep. So, any final thoughts before we conclude this episode?
Just seeing Lily Dusk was already a very talented artist pretty much from the beginning, but it's been really cool to see her progression. How not just that her style has improved, but like how she uses visual things to tell the story without having to point them out to us. Like I think she always used that well, but I feel like now with this season, like it's even stronger, where it's just using color changes to give us the emotional feel of the scene? Just
Sure.
real quick.
Very cinematic, and she always has layers. I mean, she's subtle. She doesn't really hit us over the head. You have to like really pay attention to what she's telling you. But once you do, it's there. She always is. There's always little clues, and you never know when it's going to come back. Like, you know, Lizard King here. Like, we met him way early. And again, yeah, I think he was one of the guys chasing Goliath, and then here we are again. And I think, like, basically, like, we could call this episode Poppy's Crossroads, because that's where she is.
Teri, I'll use that for the episode title.
Yeah.
Here, so.
But yeah, no, I think she's brilliant. And like we're saying, her use of color, she's so cinematic. You can tell that she's really watches a lot of film and really pays attention to cinematography and the use of color, and again, her fashion sense and all of that, and her character design. And I, you know, later in later episodes, we see that, like, the variation in the characters' faces, like with some of his little minions, I thought were really interesting, because we're, you know, she's really showing us different people. Where I've read some webtoons where everybody looks the same, they just have different hair, but the males, the females, every character looks exactly the same. We don't see this with Lily, and I think that's a lot of effort on her part, and that's a lot of work. You know what I mean? There's so much work that goes into this, not just actually drawing, but the story and the plot threads, and, you know, the layers, and how she's going to tie it all up and keep it going, and the little crumbs she leaves us. It's just so much work. Mad respect for all the work she puts into this.
Well, and I think before it was like, oh, she puts so much effort into these throwaway characters, and it's like now maybe some of those characters weren't as like one-time used as we thought. So now I was looking back and I was like, oh man, who else is gonna show up again and be important? Because, like, you know, Ben showed up early in season 1 and he seemed like he did not matter at all. Like, it was just, oh, he's some kid that, you know, just by accident got involved with this. Oh, but now he's gone. And like Candy seemed so one-dimensional. Like, she's just, you know, the stripper who wants to like get Tora for whatever reason. And now we're seeing like she's more multi-dimensional. Now we've got Dollar Store Joker coming back and being, you know, the antagonist right off the bat. And so now I'm like, who else is going to show up? Is like the cabbie going to show up again?
Well, I mean, if you think about when we first saw Candy, she was at the back of Candy and Tora in a picture. You know what I mean? Like, that's the level of preparation and detail that goes into this. I mean, she doesn't have a lot of MacGuffins, like people that are just there for no reason. There's just, she doesn't have a lot of that. So if, you know, I always pay attention to her back. Ever since I saw that was Candy and Tora in that picture, I'm like, I need to pay more attention to what's going on in the background and in the periphery, because it's going to come back into play somehow, for sure. And yeah, that's what she does. And it's when you know and you go back and you're like, damn, oh my God, she's laying it out. It's like those when you read mysteries and they lay everything out for you and you don't even realize till you get to the end. And if you reread it, you're like, oh, duh. You know, it was right there. So she does that. That's a lot of work.
Well, and it'll be interesting at the end of season 2 to go back and reread season 1, because you're gonna, I'm sure there's gonna be people who are like, oh my gosh, she introduced them that early on and we just had no idea. But yeah, I love how, like, you know, she's using characters that seem like they didn't matter, and I guess that goes back to her saying, you know, the dots are connected. And I think sometimes the theories can kind of get a little out there, but like the fact that like we didn't even guess this at all.
You know, I was the one when she put the teaser up with like the roach flying in his face, and she's like, what do you think this means? And there's my lame ass being like, I think it's a Goliath moth because he was one of the guys chasing Goliath. You know what I mean? It's like, it's fun. And then you're always like, wait a minute. But again, that's the level of thinking she inspires, because she does that kind of work. So you're like, that would not surprise me if that was a Goliath moth flying at his face in some sort of like metaphor for Goliath flying off a cliff, you know, like that would not surprise me in the least.
Well, we'll find out if any more people pop up that we discredited. Well, thank you so much for joining, and I'm super excited that we started MPL again. And I will catch you all again quite shortly.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.